Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to unpack a literally massive structural shift in how behavioral healthcare handles telehealth billing. If you're working in this space, you probably already know that the American Medical Association recently dropped a brand new digital medicine CPT code family. And look, this isn't just some minor administrative tweak. It's a fundamental recognition that virtual care absolutely requires its own dedicated coding and documentation standards. We are finally moving away from treating digital care as an afterthought and properly recognizing it as a completely distinct clinical workflow.
So, here's our playbook for today. First, we'll talk about how telehealth is now permanent. Then, we'll decode those new 9800 CPT codes. After that, we'll get into why documentation is the new prior auth, map out exactly how to chart telehealth properly, and finally, show you how to succeed with Access Revenue Hawaii.
I really want to speak directly to the clinical directors, the practice owners, and the billers who are with us right now. Ask yourself a super serious question. Is your telehealth charting truly audit ready? Because guys, that pandemic-era Wild West of billing, where we could essentially just tack a modifier onto a standard code and call it a day, that is officially over. The stakes are higher than ever right now. Recoupments are very real, payer scrutiny is at an all-time high, and having absolute precision in your documentation, it's simply no longer optional.
Okay, let's move into Section 1. Telehealth is now permanent.
We really need to internalize a key reality right out of the gate here. Telehealth is no longer a temporary pandemic patch. It has become a permanent, foundational fixture in behavioral healthcare delivery, and the evolution we're seeing is pretty stark. The old way of doing things relied on standard evaluation and management codes, your typical 99202 through 99215, paired with a modifier 93 or 95 just to show it happened remotely. But the new way? We now have dedicated digital medicine codes. That's the 9800 to 98015 series, and they were built specifically from the ground up for the digital workflow. The AMA created these precisely because they realized digital encounters have their own unique clinical rhythms and completely different documentation standards. And to prove just how serious this is, take a look at this policy update from Florida Blue. Major commercial payers are strictly enforcing this transition. By January 1st, 2026, Florida Blue is flat out mandating the use of the 9800 series for their commercial plans. They're literally going to stop accepting Office E&M codes with modifiers 93 or 95 for telemedicine services. You just can't slap a modifier on an office visit anymore and expect to get paid. The industry's moving forward, and practices that don't adapt are for sure going to be left behind. All right, Section 2, the digital medicine CPT codes. So, the introduction of this AMA 98,000 digital medicine code family, it represents one of the largest single changes to outpatient EM coding we have seen in decades. And the logic behind these codes is actually kind of elegant when you break it down. They mirror the standard EM complexity we're already used to, but they strictly separate how the service was actually delivered. So if you're using real-time audio and video, you're living in that 98,000 to 98,007 range. But if you have to drop down to a telephone-only encounter, you absolutely must use the 98,008 to 98,015 range. And just like standard codes, they're categorized further by whether the patient is new or established. It's really all about accurately categorizing the exact nature of that digital interaction. But listen up, because here is a critical trap you absolutely need to avoid. Payer policies right now are incredibly fragmented. You might think everyone is adopting the 9800 series right away. Well, actually, scratch that. While commercial plans and Medicaid are rapidly adopting them, Medicare is the massive exception here. Medicare currently does not accept the 9800 series. They still require standard EM codes with modifiers. If you submit a 9800 code to Medicare, you're going to get an immediate denial. Oh, and another crucial detail to remember. If you bill an audio-only code, your documentation has to definitively prove that the medical discussion exceeded 10 minutes.
Moving right along to Section 3, documentation is the new prior auth.
Historically, practice leaders would lay awake at night stressing about network participation, credentialing, and getting medical necessity reviews approved before a patient even walked through the virtual door. Today, that battleground has completely shifted to strict documentation validation. In fact, documentation is the new prior authorization. Let that sink in for a second. This is basically the mantra of the modern billing landscape. Payer behavior has aggressively shifted away from pre-approval and straight into intense post-service auditing.
Just put yourself in the shoes of a payer auditor for a minute. They aren't just casually checking boxes anymore. No way. They are asking hard, probing questions about your notes, like, was the patient actually located in the city and state you documented? Was this definitively audio-only or audio-video? Was psychotherapy actually performed, and did you document it separately from just basic medication management? Was there enough E&M work to actually justify the level you billed? Did you get informed consent? And hey, if the video failed, did you explicitly document that technology failure to justify using an audio-only code? Increasingly, getting paid entirely depends on how well your notes answer these exact questions. It's daunting, but it's our new reality.
Let's jump to Section 4, Charting Telehealth Properly.
So how do we actually survive this intense level of scrutiny? Well, by charting telehealth properly every single time. Consider this your non-negotiable clinical checklist. Regardless of whether you're doing an OP visit, a psychiatry medication management session, or writing a group note for an intensive outpatient program, your chart absolutely must answer who, where, and how. You've got to state the exact modality, document whether consent was verbal or written, clearly log the exact city and state for both the patient and the provider, and confirm that the visit was clinically appropriate to even be held via telehealth. That location piece is especially critical right now because of all the complex interstate licensing rules.
And this is absolutely crucial, because if you miss these details, you trigger what we call biller red flags. Missing locations, missing consent, omitting the required times for time-based services, or using audio-only telehealth without writing down a specific clinical or technical justification will instantly hold up your claims. A clean, audit-ready note isn't about writing a novel, it's really just about making sure the precise, required elements are there so your billers don't have to kick the note back to you.
Now here's a surprising fact that often trips up a lot of well-meaning clinicians. Trying to make your notes sound overly legal, it actually increases your audit risk. Crazy, right? So as a best practice, do not include specific platform names like Zoom. Instead, just say HIPAA-compliant platform. And please, do not try to guarantee the platform's HIPAA compliance in your note. You simply cannot legally guarantee another company's tech. Keep your language clinical and concise. Trust me, excessive legal jargon is basically a magnet for auditor scrutiny.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Succeed with Access Revenue Hawaii.
So how in the world do you navigate this massive structural shift without losing your mind or your profit margin? Well, let me introduce you to Access Revenue Hawaii. They are Hawaii's #1 behavioral health billing company, but actually, more importantly, they are completely compliance-focused. They truly understand that in today's landscape, a billing partner has to be deeply invested in the clinical success and audit readiness of your entire operation. They genuinely want to see you succeed, and they know for a fact that success starts with bulletproof documentation.
What makes Access Revenue Hawaii fundamentally different is their proactive approach. They aren't just going to blindly process your claims. They will actively train your clinical team. They make sure your prior authorizations, your clinical notes, and your patient charts are strictly compliant with these aggressive new payer standards. And they do it before a single claim ever goes out the door.
Because as we've seen today, especially with the introduction of these permanent 98,000 series codes, audits are just no longer a send the documents and see what happens scenario. Hoping for the best is simply not a viable business strategy anymore. Absolute precision is required, and Access Revenue Hawaii provides exactly that level of precision and peace of mind.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. In this new highly scrutinized era of digital medicine, how much of your hard-earned revenue are you really willing to risk on poor clinical charting? The rules have fundamentally changed, the codes have evolved from simple modifiers to entirely new systems, and the level of scrutiny has totally skyrocketed. It really is time to partner with Access Revenue Hawaii, secure your compliance, and protect your practice's future. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and chart with absolute confidence.